Hey there, Emmanuel here. Welcome back to the Tech with Turis podcast. In this episode, which is one that I'm doing after a very long break from this podcast, is all about the AI being a bubble, but why you should still pay attention to it. So I first of all want to start by explaining why I think that AI is currently inside a bubble. A lot of things make me believe that we are currently in a bubble. First of all, just the amount of craziness going around the tech, Twitter or X space. And if you take a look at a lot of the posts, you're going to see that people just have the craziest takes and the craziest beliefs about AI. So there are people that believe AI is conscious, there are people that believe the current iteration of AI is going to take all of our jobs away. So there's just a lot of takes that are very detached from reality itself. And that is the first thing that makes me think this is a bubble. Just the amount of people who make a lot of claims that are clearly detached from reality, from what's actually happening in the real world. First of all, AI is not conscious, and second, the current iteration has a lot of flaws that have not yet been solved, which means that it is not reliable for a lot of work that white-collar jobs require. Then, after this, I think that just the financial situation of it all makes it also a bubble. I'm not a financial expert in any kind of way, and none of what I'm saying here should be taken as financial advice, but I think that evaluations of companies like OpenAI or Anthropic are hugely exaggerated. I think that I just saw today or yesterday that Anthropic is now valued at more than 900 billion with a B dollars, and it is valued actually more than Walmart, the American supermarket chain. And I think I saw also that the amount of revenue that Walmart has is closer to that $900 billion of evaluation, and the revenue that Anthropic has, as you may know, it is very low. I think around 30 or 40 billion dollars. So if you just take a look at this evaluation, which is just insane, to be honest, and again, not financial advice, but I think that it is just unbelievable that people are trusting that this company is going to get to a level where it has that amount of revenue. Then you have the fact that there's a lot of circular investment going on in the industry. You have companies like Amazon and Google and Microsoft investing into companies like OpenAI and Anthropic. You also have Nvidia doing the same thing. And then you have those companies, OpenAI and Anthropic, buying compute from companies like Microsoft, Amazon, and then those companies pour money back into those companies. So this essentially creates here a circular economy where this money is not actually fueling the general economy. It is not being put back into the economy, but rather just going around in circles, staying within this small number of companies, which are very huge and are just bouncing money around. We talked about how companies like Anthropic and OpenAI have huge evaluations, which are not tied to reality. And then you add to that the fact that they are literally losing money, so they're not even profitable yet. And this obviously comes from the fact that they have a lot of money being poured into research and development, but a lot of it is also the fact that they are literally giving away money for free. They're currently trying to tighten up things a lot more than in the past, but you might have seen online stories of people spending thousands and thousands of dollars on, for example, the Claude Max plan when they were only paying $200 a month. And this essentially meant that Anthropic was giving away money for free. You can think of it as they were giving away tokens, but if they are essentially burning through a lot of compute just to attract new customers, and then those customers are able to spend thousands and thousands of dollars, like I said, of tokens when they are only being charged $200, it is essentially setting money on fire. And the problem here relies in that these companies are assuming that we're going to stick around after they make changes to their plans. They are assuming that people are paying $200 a month for something like a Claude Max subscription, and then when those limits start to tighten up a lot, they're assuming that we're just going to accept that and keep using their products. But the reality is that if you were paying, let's say, the actual price of the tokens that you're consuming instead of just a $200 a month plan, you would not be happy with the quality of service. You would not be happy with the fact that Claude makes mistakes all of the time. You would not be happy with a lot of things that you probably accept just because you know that you're getting such a good deal. And this leads me to the final reason why I think this is a bubble, and that is the AI economy is just not financially viable. The quality we get from these tools simply do not make up for the amount of money that we have to spend if we are actually paying for the real price of these tools. Like I said, instead of us getting these huge discounts, that means companies like Anthropic and OpenAI end up losing money. If we were to be paying the actual price, the quality simply doesn't justify those huge costs. Okay, so now let's go into the second part of what I want to talk about, which is you should still pay attention to it. So AI is a bubble, but you should still pay attention to it. And I see that a lot of people are either in one camp or in the other. There are either the people that say AI is the new thing in the economy, AI is the new thing in tech, and you should basically be all into AI. Everything that these companies do is perfect. They're perfect. The models are amazing. They have no flaws. All of the flaws that they might have is actually a skill issue that you have. And then there are the people that say these models are 100% useless. AI is actually the worst thing in the world ever, and you should pay no attention to it. And everyone that is involved, maybe even in AI, is just a bunch of evil people or stupid people that you should just disregard everything that they say. And I think it's important to try and look at things from a much more realistic point of view. So one of the things that I truly believe is that AI in its current form is the result of a lot of financial decisions instead of technological decisions. One very clear reason for this is the fact that we have these large language models. So if you don't know, LLM stands for large language models, and we see a lot of push into this idea that we need these models to become bigger and bigger, more and more intelligent. They need to be able to do more and more things. They need to be more and more versatile, instead of trying to focus our attention on how we can make these models much more viable when it comes to certain kinds of expert work. So for example, if you right now open Claude and you start chatting with it, the model that is going to be used to reply to you and give you all of the answers, if you want to ask it about something like the weather, or you want to talk about personal issues that you're having, or you want to just ask it for help in writing an essay, is going to be the exact same model that is helping you inside of your code base, writing code, writing Python scripts, and so on and so on. And while I know that there are a lot of benefits from doing things this way, I think that most of the reason we are doing things this way is because these companies want to have sort of a monopoly on the model space. And you can clearly see that they currently already do so. Most people use ChatGPT, and a lot of people also use Claude, and the rest of the models are essentially noise when it comes to most of the population. Obviously, if you're within this machine learning or AI space, you know about all of the other models, but they are mostly unknown. And what I truly believe is going to be the future of machine learning and AI is going to be smaller models that are expert models at doing a lot of different tasks. So let's say that you are working within a Python code base. Maybe you have a model that is an expert at Python and nothing else. It doesn't know anything about Rust, about Zig, about Golang, and it only knows about Python. If you ask it what is the best basketball player in the world, it's not going to tell you something like Michael Jordan, or LeBron James because it doesn't even know about those things. So the weights of the model are not being wasted on random facts and random information from the world. Rather, they are being specialized into a very particular task and maybe even into a very particular way of doing that task. Let's say that you work inside of a large company and that your company has a way of writing Python. You maybe prefer to use functions instead of classes. You maybe prefer to have a certain kind of style when it comes to writing your code base. You can see a future where the company simply fine-tunes a particular model that is already specialized in Python for a particular code base instead of having to do all of these tricks that we currently rely on, which are trying to build very specific and very large prompts, having to use what is currently known as context engineering, and still in the end having the model make a lot of mistakes that you clearly said in the prompt that you did not want the model to do. And the reason that the model falls back to doing all of these kinds of behaviors is because it was simply trained to do that. A company like OpenAI does some RL on the model. They might do something like RLHF, so based on human feedback, and then the model they release ends up having all of these preferences, all of these ways of doing things. And instead of you just very naturally telling the model, hey, please go ahead and write code, write me this function, and knowing that the model is going to already be adapted to your style of work, you have to do all of this silly stuff on top of it to try to make it not behave in the way that it was trained. And that is very hard because, again, it was trained to behave that way, and it's eventually going to fall back to its training, and then you're going to argue with it and say, why didn't you actually pay attention to my prompt? I said you should not do that. I said that you should behave this way. And then it's going to apologize. It's going to say that it shouldn't have done that. And you're going to say, okay, now do the thing that I actually want you to do. And after a couple of minutes, a couple of hours, inside of a different task, inside of a different session, it's going to fall back again to its training, and you're going to have the exact same problem over and over again. Now imagine that you were actually able to be a part of the OpenAI team and tell them what your preferences were inside of a particular code base and train the model to actually do exactly the things that you want the model to do. And that is what I think the future again is, because instead of we having these one or two companies that control all of the models that we use to do our work, we're going to have a bunch of different companies that are specialized in smaller models. And in a sense, the market is going to take matters into its own hands and just naturally distribute things in a way where you're going to have models that are specialized in marketing, models that are specialized in copywriting, models that are specialized in code, instead of having one model that does everything. So all of this to say that because AI is currently within a bubble, it doesn't mean that there's not a actual market out there. It doesn't mean that there's a future for AI. It simply means that we are currently in a bubble, and all of the dynamics that we currently see are a result of that. But if instead you focus on becoming good at AI, maybe even learn machine learning, if you learn how to do things like fine-tune models, how to work with smaller models instead of just calling Anthropic's or OpenAI's APIs, you'll have a skill set that is going to be hugely useful right now and in the future. And to finish this episode, I want to invite you to join the Tech with Turis Inner Circle, a private group for programmers that want to grow their skills and explore new and interesting topics within programming. When you join, you'll get access to weekly group calls for members only, where we'll do everything from teaching classes, have open-ended discussions, and explore new and fun projects. When you join, you'll also get access to a private Discord server, where you'll be able to chat with other members and with me. And last but not least, you'll have access to exclusive pre-recorded courses on a range of different topics, such as front-end development, back-end development, machine learning, tooling, and much more. To join, go to techwithturis.com/IC. Again, to join, go to techwithturis.com/IC.